didn't mean to mess everybody up. I didn't know if you were ready for
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, all right. If you want to check what the weather's going to be like this weekend, or get the latest update on the war in Afghanistan, or even just see what's going on in the Commonwealth, where do you turn? Some of you may say that you turn to the newspaper, but I know most of us, including myself, we normally turn to the television. And so did every other family, well, most every other family during the Vietnam War. But little did we know back then that the media in Vietnam would end up being America's kryptonite, both to the troops on the ground and the ultimate outcome of the war. I chose to do the intergenerational project as well, and I interviewed a Distinguished Medal of Honor recipient by the name of Ed Klein. He's a good friend of my stepdad's. He currently volunteers as a deputy wildlife conservation officer, so we know him pretty well. And he was a sergeant in a specialty unit of the Army Rangers. So over the next few minutes, I'd like to discuss just how, in fact, the media played such a huge factor in the war. Vietnam was the very first war where daily live feeds were broadcasted into the homes of typical Americans, and what they were seeing, they were completely not prepared for. Now, it is true that during the end of World War I and throughout World War II, there were cameramen filming and gathering news on the war that was going on. But those images and those news, they didn't make it back home until the conflicts had ceased. So this factor is what kept America's unwavering support for the war. It kept it going on throughout World War I and World War II. And this can be assessed because at the beginning, before we even entered into Vietnam, 99.9% of America, according to History.com, wanted to go to war with the communist North Vietnamese. But soon after those graphic images came through on the TV is when bad sentiment came into a typical American household. Media also played back to the soldiers on the ground. Because of its contempt for the war, news went to the troops and ultimately lowered their morale. Videos of protests, not only against the war, but against the troops themselves, made it into the hands of the soldiers over in Vietnam. Videos included soldiers being spit on and being called names like baby killers, which Ed Klein actually told me happened to him on his return home. How could anyone continue to fight against an enemy when it seems like there's another enemy at home that is supposed to be supporting you and supposed to be your ally and supposed to be your backbone? Quite honestly, I'm not quite sure. And, you know, this wasn't originally part of my speech, but honestly, I'm not sure how Jane Fonda wasn't kicked out of the United States yet. But that's just my personal opinion. Finally, the media aided the enemy advancements as well. It is noted by the History Channel that North Vietnamese actually had specific duties to scan our radio waves and watch our television so that they can get reports on our activity. So it gave the enemy a heads up on our location and even our possible future movements. My interviewee, Ed, stated that his unit was specifically ordered to not answer any questions from the media whatsoever, and actually just avoid them at all costs. If you see them coming, just get out of Dodge. And this ensured that nothing that was said would give the enemy any type of advantage over them, or even probably more so, be twisted by the public into something that can be used against them. So as we can see, the media certainly played quite a role in the outcome of the war. So whether it was in live news feeds coming home, or protests from America being sent into the hands of our troops overseas, or even just sending vital information into the hands of our enemies, it is pretty obvious that there's no place for the media in a war zone. this in mind, perhaps this historical evidence has a lesson that we should learn from today. And those are my references.